The Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission has retracted its earlier claim of discrepancies in the disbursement of student loans under the Nigeria Education Loan Fund. ICPC's Director of Public Enlightenment and Education, Demola Bakari, issued the retraction in a revised statement on Thursday, just hours after the Commission's earlier update suggested that discrepancies were already established in the student loan disbursements. The Commission earlier said preliminary findings revealed major gaps in the financial records of the student loan scheme. It added that while the federal government reportedly released $100 billion, only 28.8 billion naira was disbursed to students, leaving 71.2 billion naira unaccounted for. However, the Federal Ministry of Education has launched an investigation into alleged illegal deductions from institutional fees paid by the Nigerian Education Loan Fund on behalf of beneficiaries of the student loan scheme. To discuss this development, we have joining us Professor Yomi Fawehinmi, a policy analyst, Professor David Aworawo, lecturer at the University of Lagos, as well as Eniola Orowole, Public Relations Officer of the National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I will start with you, Professor Fawehinmi. ICPC issued a statement with the clear caption, ICPC launches comprehensive investigation into discrepancies in student loan disbursement. There was no ambiguity in the caption, but in 24 hours, it made a U-turn. I have read many versions of this retraction in the papers, and it still doesn't make sense. I mean, is it possible for any institution to put out a statement on a very sensitive matter without thoroughly vetting it, only to retract same over a missing not word, barely 24 hours after the statement kicked off a storm?
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. A great question from you about that. It talks again about institutional capacity. But let us remember that the first institution that made the accusation was NELFON itself. On the 10th of April, NELFON alleged that some universities were doing things that were not correct. NELFON said it actually threatened to go to court because he said some schools were doing the wrong thing. So it started with NELFON making an accusation in around 10th or 11th of April, thereabouts. Then, interestingly, the next agency that took on the issue was the National Orientation Agency. At about the 13th of April, the National Orientation Agency, now, you remember I said NELFON accused the schools. The National Orientation Agency came and accused the schools and the banks, actually used the word conspire. The National Orientation Agency said all the schools and the banks conspired to do what is not right. Those two organizations have accused, and there was now silence until the 29th of April or thereabouts, when the Guardian newspaper now said there were 51 universities involved in this process. It was that news report. And the biggest challenge for me in the whole story was that after the Guardian now did that release of the 29th, that 51 universities were there, NELFON dissociated itself from the report from Guardian. So it was NELFON that said something was wrong. The National Orientation Agency confirmed it. Then the Guardian newspaper wrote about it and mentioned 51. And NELFON, the organization that initially raised the accusation, dissociated itself from the report. And that was, for me, the bigger conclusion. 2 days or thereabouts, the ICPC now said something was going wrong that is not right. And then, like you said, a couple of hours after, said, no, we are no more accusing the NELFON, but we are going after the schools and the beneficiaries. For me, my own analysis of what has happened, I believe NELFON has done creditably well if you compare to other public institutions. The biggest confusion in this whole story was the way NELFON denied and dissociated itself from the report that the Guardian did that corroborated what it said earlier. And that's where we are today. It's a Guardian report that actually made them respond, that actually made ICPC report. If they have reinforced, as we expect people to partner with the media, then we might have gotten some progress. But now, what has now happened? And now eventually, May 4th or thereabout, the minister now said he wants to meet with the school. So they have thrown the can from the federal government agencies directly and moved it to the school.
All right. I mean, you're laying the blame to some degree at NetFund, even though you say they've done well. But this is not about NetFund at this moment. We're talking about an independent institution of government issuing a statement, retracting same over a particular word. And then you look at what the headline of that presser stated and the retraction that came 24 hours later. Let me shift to Professor Aworawo and just ask you your perception of all of this. Does it make sense? Is the retraction plausible? Is it that they are making investigation or some sort of pressure was exerted to have that retraction done?
There is a lot of confusion in the way the whole thing has been handled. Just like Prof said, it was NetFund that initially raised an alarm, so to speak, about suspicions of some inconsistencies in the way the loans have been handled by different institutions. And then ICPC came into the matter, and then just in the last 24 hours or so, we have now had even more confusion by ICPC making the retraction. ICPC said the word "not," was supposed to be in this statement. The word "not" is not there, But when one looks at the whole report itself, the not and no not they are talking about does not explain why they have made that retraction. But the good thing is that the retraction by ICPC and the statements by NetFund has not wiped out investigations into the whole issue. That is the aspect of it that is good. Both the Ministry of Education, the House Committee on Education, they are all looking into it. Again, even the figures they have put out are a bit confusing. At some point, the one bread is 100 billion, out of really 28 billion has been disbursed. At another bread is 203 billion, out of which 44 billion has been disbursed. So the issue of how much exactly has been disbursed, we need to know. Because again, the figures there are not even exact from the bodies that are alleging that mismanagement has taken place in the way the fund has been handled. So all of that needs to be clarified. For justice to be done, you need, careful investigation and diligent prosecution.
Well,
ICPC
is saying that they are going to. I'm sorry to interject, but I just wanted to corroborate what you're saying by adding that ICPC has now come out to say that investigation is still ongoing and no indictment has been made, and they gave their reasons for this. Let's bring in Eniola quickly, because, I mean, students are at the heart of what we're talking about today. Eniola, NAS came up, I think, earlier. Okay, I understand we don't have Eniola yet. So I'll come back to you, Professor Aworawo, Professor Fawehinmi, rather. Walk us quickly, because it seems that there is some confusion as to how this loan disbursement is supposed to work. So as quickly as you can, before we continue talking about the issues arising, how is this loan supposed to work? Who gets what? Does it go to the school first? Does some of it go to the student? How?
Okay, so the loan is in two parts. Thanks again for the question. There is the loan that deals with institutional fees. So that is technically the loan for the school fees. Remember, it's a loan. So I'm a student of University of Lagos. My school fees is 20 naira. I get a loan for that. So there is that component. Then there is a second part of the loan that is called for upkeep. The upkeep is a monthly disbursement sent directly to the students. So there are two tracks of the loan, the one that goes to the school to take care of institutional fees and the one that goes directly to the student. Both of them are loans and they're supposed to be repaid. Now, all the complaints that have been made has been about the institutional loan, the loan that goes through the school. And that is why I feel the real issue is with the design of the program. A student applies for a loan. It says, I need 20,000 naira to pay my fee. ICPC does not rely on the 20,000, NELFund does not rely on the 20,000 the student said, I need to pay my fees. NELFund relies on what the school says is the school fees of the student. And part of the challenge that has happened in this case is that there have now been evidences that some schools have inflated the fees. So my school fees is 20,000. My university tells NELFund my school fees is 25,000. We now have evidence that some schools did that, and actually NELFund confirmed that has happened. And again, please note, this is not a recent thing. These students have been complaining about this thing as far back as last year. So it's not a recent thing. Now, you had that part of the challenge. The other part of the challenge is with the fact that, so now my school's fees is 20,000. NELFund releases the money. The school does not tell me. Part of the allegation that NELFund raised around the 10th of April was that some schools will collect the loan and not inform the student and go after the student to pay another loan. So I now, because NELFund did not pay as paid and the school did not tell me, or the school is denying, I now go and borrow money from somewhere else and I pay the fee so that I can attend classes. And then I now see evidence that NELFund has paid. And I tell my school, give me back the money I paid since NELFund has given me the loan. And the school refused to give me back the loan.
That is, so I mean, if that allegation, Prof, if that allegation turns out to be true, that means something is clearly illegally going on in our institutions. Let's bring in Eniola now. I understand she's been able to, oh, I beg your pardon, Eniola, sir. I understand you've been able to join us. Talk to us. I don't know if you followed the conversation so far. The ICPC, on the one hand, said they are still investigating. NELFund says nothing has, no discrepancy has been noted as of now. But there was a presser from the National Association. You planned to go on a protest on April 29 on this matter, but I don't think that happened. Talk to us about what students are telling you, if there are evidence that the allegations that monies are being taken away from students is true.
Well, good evening, Nigeria. I'm happy to be here tonight, but I want to quickly say one or two things now. The students of Nigerian institutions are completely sad. They are not happy with the government. They are disappointed and they are irritated. Well, before I go forward with my analysis, I would like to advise the federal government to ease us of all this stress and scrap NELFund. It's a waste of resources, waste of time, and waste of energy. They dash the hope of millions of students in Nigeria. It was the DG of National Retraction Agency, Larry Onilu, that brought up this matter. But I'm so disappointed for the ICPC of high esteem to come out and, eat their vomit barely 24 hours to the declaration of the investigation into this NELFund scenario. Let me read out the statement of ICPC to you in case you don't know.
All right, we already have that. Eniola, we already have that. What I want from you tonight, if possible, is to confirm that these allegations, that students actually have come to the NAS and told them that they pay to the school and the school refuses to refund them, or they are not getting what is due to them. What are they telling you?
Well, I just, a few hours ago, I spoke with my executives and across Nigeria. The students are telling us that the loans are not getting to them. Few of them are getting it. They just disbursed 53 billion naira so far. It's very unfortunate. People are not getting this loan. The students are frustrated. Why not lower the institution, the tuition fee of the higher institution instead of robbing Peter to pay Paul?
Okay. If you could just talk to us about you gave a press statement not too long ago, and you said you were going to a protest. What happened? Did that protest hold? Did you take your matter to the federal government somehow?
Well, in the inception of this interview, they have already told me not to talk about the faction in NAS, but it's extremely inevitable. We are not aware of any protest that's supposed to hold on because part of NAS has already been pocketed and turned to the toothless bulldog from some government agencies. I don't want to mention name, but as I'm talking to you now, Comrade Issa Atiku Abubakar is the authentic NAS president.
All right,
and
we'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'll leave it there for now. Let's go to Professor Aworawo and just ask this. I mean, on the storm that was released by the statement from the ICPC, some would say it's a good thing because we hear now that the Federal Ministry of Education is saying that they are going to convene a meeting on May 6th with Vice Chancellors of affected universities and the managing director of NELFund. They are also talking about creating initiatives. Let me see if I can find that. Creating initiatives to check how monies are being spent at the universities. And this triggers a thought. Is it that Professor Fawehinmi said earlier that the design of the program might have an issue? Checks and balances. Is that something you are seeing as well?
Yes. Let me just make this point very clearly, that it will be a huge disservice to Nigerian students if the NELFund program scheme is scrapped, as the student union, a young man there is saying. To do that will be tantamount to throwing away the baby with the bathwater. What needs to happen is to look at the problems and address them. I also want to quickly state that NELFund itself has thoughts of its own. This last session, when the session started, the session was midway. This first semester was midway before the portal for students to be able to register for the fund was open. That was what created the room for schools to tell students to go and look for money to pay first before their monies will be paid to the various universities. And of course, it seems that when the money now came, some of the universities now didn't quickly, reimburse the students involved. Then the other side to it is that NELFund does not accept OPay, PAMPay, and all of this. And many of the students, the accounts to which the 3,000 or more money they pay as stipend to every month, they submitted is OPay, PAMPay, and all of this. NELFund does not accept that. They only accept established banks. So these are the things they need to tidy up so that the scheme can function smoothly. And of course, just as you have said, in Nigeria, we can abuse just anything. It seems also that the Vice Chancellors are charging illegal fees on top of this money. All of this mess needs to be cleared off so that the scheme can function properly and serve its purpose.
Professor Fawehinmi, do you agree with Professor Aworawo that we should not talk about scrapping the scheme, throwing the baby with the bathwater as well?
Yeah, I agree with him. It's interesting. When I was an undergraduate, in the 80s. There was a student loan fund. I mean, so it's not as if it's not an innovation. I mean, there's a way they talk about it as if it's a new thing. I mean, as an undergraduate, I was aware of the Students' Federal Scholarship Board. I think that's what it used to be called. So we have always had some form of, I think the first time we said to have some support for students came under the regime of General Gowon. That's in the 70s. So we have always had this in various shapes and forms. And like Professor Aworawo said, what we need to do is to improve it. And one of the things the minister has said is that a non-governmental organization will get involved in some elements of monitoring and reporting, which is what we should have designed from the beginning to ensure that there's some third-party verification. It's also interesting to me that the minister said he wants to meet with the vice chancellors and the CEO of NELFund. Please note, the CEO of NELFund, the CEO of National Retracting Agency, and also ICPC have accused the universities of doing something that is wrong. If somebody is accused of doing something wrong, why are you holding a meeting with him? Why is the minister holding a meeting when 3 government agencies have said something is not right in the universities? I think what we should rather do is to allow ICPC or EFCC to do their investigation. Why are you holding the dialogue between the people that accuse the schools and the man that made the accusation? That looks like some extrajudicial process to find a soft landing. At the end of the day, I'm not sure anything is going to come out of this, because I do not understand why 3 government agencies will accuse university of doing something wrong, and the minister, rather than say investigation, please conclude the investigation, let's meet and let's talk about it. It looks like the way we resolve political issues in Nigeria, it's a family issue. All right. I'm not sure anything is going to come.
I'm sorry to interject, but we have very limited time for this conversation. I want to come to Eniola quickly and just say, you've heard what the professors are saying, that scrapping the program, the scheme is not in the best interest of students. So I want to ask you quickly, what would make, I mean, allegations are on the fore, reactions are coming. What other actions do you, would you see that would make this scheme, you know, more acceptable for the student union? Eniola, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. Can you come again, please?
Yeah, I'm asking you, the professors, you have 30 seconds, please. The professors are saying that we shouldn't throw away the baby with the bathwater. You suggested that the NEL fund should be scrapped. They are saying no. And I'm asking you, what would make it acceptable for, I mean, what would make it better if these issues are addressed?
Well, I appreciate the Minister of Education with what he's coming up with. And, well, that is the absolute solution. Is scrapping, but I also seen your guests tonight, the professor and the other gentleman. Well, I believe we have to look into, and a student body, they have to involve the student bodies, the NAS, in this NEL fund of a thing. The NEL fund have to call the students' union body.
All right,
to be involved,
more involvement.
So that
more involvement. Eniola, I'm sorry to interject. I'm trying to make the best of the time. Thank you very much for your submission. To wrap up quickly, Professor Aworawo, will this confusion and this mistake that has been corrected by ICPC, do you think it will impact the outcome of their investigation when they do come out with a full report eventually? In 30 seconds, sir.
Of the issue. If they are honest, they are sincere, and they are, forthright, what has happened now will not affect it. But if they allow interventions on right, left, and center to affect, careful investigation and diligence in handling the matter, of course, it will affect the outcome. But I agree with Professor Fawehinmi that they should have allowed these bodies to do their investigation and then submit a report, so that those who are culpable can be brought to justice. That will be the best way to ensure that, there is deterrence for any other person who might want to do that in future. But if they hold a meeting and do it like a family affair, there will be no deterrence. And I'm afraid these problems might not just be resolved.
Thank you so much for giving us your time tonight. We appreciate it.